One of the great things about 90s music is that the musicians of the era were doing a lot of experimentation. And this created a very diverse landscape. I'm not the kind of person that thinks a band should stay within a specific genre. To me, genre is just a way to describe the way a song sounds instead of trying to make instrument noises with your mouth. Musicians should feel free to experiment with their expression. And though I do prefer music with darker expression, I don't tend to hold it against artists that want to move outside of that. Today's band took that 90s mentality of experimentation and made an entire career out of it. Almost every album was a reinvention of the band's sound. Over the course of 30 years, they have been labeled as a death doom, alternative metal, hard rock, alternative rock, and even progressive metal. If you try to explain this band to someone by using a genre label and you don't give them a specific album to listen to, they're probably not going to trust your recommendations anymore. In my opinion, they have made something for almost everyone. And odds are, you'll probably like at least one album from them if you already like metal. Well, even if you like rock and roll and don't like metal, you'll probably find an album from these guys that you do like. Why you might like Katatonia. Katatonia was founded in 1991 with Jonas Ranks on vocals and drums and Anders Nystrom on keyboards and guitars. And eventually they rounded off their original lineup by bringing in Guillaume Lahouche on bass. And in 1993 they would release their first full-length album, Dance of December Souls. This album builds on the sounds previously established by bands like My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost, but has an even stronger focus on atmosphere. Within the opening seconds of Without God, my ears immediately draw comparisons to Paradise Lost's Gothic. The slow and crunchy guitars with high delay and reverb are almost identical. But Jonas's raspier vocals, along with the riff changes, do set it apart from Paradise Lost. But there are more than enough similarities to draw the comparison. Coming in at a short 1 minute and 42 seconds, Elohim Meth is a great example of Katatonia's early atmospheric experimentation. And for such a short instrumental, it's effective in its delivery. Tomb of Insomnia is the opposite of Elohim Meth. Where the former is short and to the point, This song is a 13-minute juggernaut. It continues with the Paradise Lost style of Death Doom, but with necro-style vocals. Slow and methodical, the song creeps along, and around the 4-minute mark, the song morphs into something a little bit more prog, and it puts on display some of the band's more innovative ideas. Dancing December is almost like the band knew they were asking a little too much of the listener with Tomb of Insomnia's playtime, and they kept this one short and sweet. This song is another instrumental, and they managed to get across the same musical concepts in just a little over 2 minutes. I tend not to listen to this album much, and I do revisit it time to time, but I pretty much only listen to Without God and Elohim Meth before I get the itch to put on some My Dying Bride, and then I listen to that. I think most of the time when people talk about how a band's early albums were their best, what they really mean was that they saw a lot of potential in a band's early work, and the band never lived up to that potential. With Katatonia, Dance of December Souls wasn't that album, and for many early Katatonia fans, that album would arrive 3 years later with Brave Murder Day. At this stage in their career, Jonas had damaged his vocal cords, and he decided he didn't want to scream anymore. So he recruited his buddy Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth to do the harsh vocals on the album, while Jonas would still do cleans. Brave Murder Day was also an abrupt shift from their first album. While their first album is considered more of an imitation of a sound other bands were already doing, Brave Murder Day leaned even more into the atmosphere side of their music. And considering it's only a 6-song album, the album is really only about 3 of those songs. And they are the same songs that give it its title. Brave is the evolution of Tomb of Insomnia. But instead of the slow, methodical tempo, this song has a more steady driving beat. And though it has a very basic chord progression, the opening riff establishes that this version of the band is focusing more on developing atmosphere. Michael Ackerfeld's vocals are more guttural than Jonas's from the previous album, and it certainly gives it a more Death Doom feeling. Much like Tomb, the mid-song shift displays some early progressive influences and almost prefaces the future of both Katatonia and Opeth. The opening of Murder is reminiscent of Killing Joke's 1980 self-titled album. The song also continues the driving rhythm of Brave, but shifts into Death Doom. Once past the Death Doom segment, the song shifts into an almost black metal sequence. Though a bit more subdued, it perfectly conveys the crypt denizen atmosphere, and Ackerfeld's vocals perfectly complement this arrangement. Day is the first time we get Jonas singing clean vocals. Though like much of this album, it was very rough around the edges. You can start to see the creativity of this band here. Most bands of the time that were putting out death doom or black metal would have never even dared to make a song like Day. But Katatonia did, and a lot of Stockholm bands followed suit. I break out this album every now and again. It's one of those I own on vinyl, and it's fun to just throw it on and let it play. But it's not really on any of my regular playlists. Brave Murder Day was the first album from Katatonia I had heard, and like most of the bands I discovered in '96, it was another one I found in a small music store in Italy. To my ears, this album was full of potential. It was a blend of heavy and soft I had never heard before. It was like being crushed by a 10-ton pillow. I had no idea what this band had in store for its future, and no one else did either. 2 years later, the band had shifted its sound again with its 1998 release, Discouraged Ones. Jonas would still play drums, but also contribute to some guitars, and Anders would stick to his duties. They also brought in Fred Norman for additional guitar work, as well as Mickey Ortolf on bass. This album is the beginning of the clean vocals only era, and if you don't like clean singing, then you can stop this video now, because from here on out, the rest of the albums are clean singing only. Discouraged Ones has much less of the aggression of the previous albums, and has more of a shoegaze feel. Gone are any and all remnants of death metal, and Jonas had just begun to discover his voice. Many of the songs are laden with the melancholy and depression reminiscent more of bands like The Cure and Swans. At 3 minutes and 37 seconds, Relention is the perfect length for a radio song. Though not exactly pop, it does share a lot of elements with alternative rock songs from the late 90s. Riff-wise, the song is very similar to songs like Brave and Murder, but instead of shifting into a death doom sound, it goes into more of a soft-toned, sad boy kind of song.
It's hard to say where I've been, or I'm slipping in the dark. I don't know.
Meanwhile, Cold Ways picks up the mood a little bit. The song has more alt-rock riffing, and it manages to sneak in a few riffs from their earlier works. Jonas's vocals sound like Robert Smith's lower tones mixed with Tom York's pacing.
Twisting names inside of me, electric atmosphere to be. Must carry on one last time, count out what has begun.
Back in the 80s, I was a metalhead that also loved The Cure. I never imagined those two sounds mixing, but when Katatonia initially blended the genres on Brave Murder Day, it caught my attention. But when they released this, I began to wonder just how far they could go with this sound.
In your eyes, you're alive. But in my eyes, you're alive. In my eyes, you're alive.
Saw You Drown, like much of the album, sounds like something that could have been on college radio in the 90s. However, I think this song nails the sound better than any other on this album.
In the water, I saw you drown. Down the water, I saw you drown.
From the pacing to the lyrical content, the song sings to the hearts of fans of bands like The Cure, Swans, or Bauhaus. This song is a depression and melancholy-filled pastry served along with a glass of absinthe.
And my heart cries, sleeping through life. Another way to change my mind. Never is the day to leave it all behind.
As far as playlists go, Cold Ways and Saw You Drown find their way into a lot of my playlists. For many fans, this would be the real first album for the band, and the changing of the styles had only just begun. "1999 saw yet another change to Katatonia's sound with Tonight's Decision. Jonas would move to focusing on only vocals, while Dan the Man Swano would replace Jonas on drums in the studio, and Friedrich Norman would switch to bass for this album. Tonight's Decision still held on to some of the shoegaze sounds of Discouraged Ones, though the overall tone would land them into more of an alternative rock realm, putting them closer to bands like Radiohead or Jeff Buckley than bands like Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride. Aside from the shift in tone, the other major noticeable change is that Jonas has clearly begun to grow into his voice. Right Into Bliss opens with the riffing style we have become familiar with over the last couple of albums, but it then shifts into something that sounds like it could have been written by a band like Weezer, except a little more subdued.
By a black road, giving a brief smile. Something's on the way, forgotten for a while. And you try.
Almost all elements of December and Brave Murder Day are gone and are instead replaced with something more akin to college radio of the time. contrast, No Good Can Come of This has slow, chunky riffs for the verses, but then transitions into a more upbeat rock style for the choruses.
This is no good way out. But it's a challenge, so I see it. Dance head.
Much of the song is more reminiscent of the early 90s Seattle music, but Katatonia peppers in that Stockholm melancholy here and there.
No good can come of this. Whatsoever I can tell you. No good will ever come of this. The road to happiness I never knew.
Towards the end of the album, we get a peek into the future of Katatonia with A Darkness Coming. Jonas's voice really starts to shine here, and the Jeff Buckley influences become more noticeable as well.
What's next? But I'm not here to say what should be done about this. I just keep my eyes to watch.
The choice to have the first half of the song carried by just an acoustic guitar and a synth makes the second half of the song have more of an impact when it finally kicks in. The song would also get a rework later on, but we'll go into that later in the video.
I saw it coming, something bad. I saw it coming, something bad.
Black Session is a monster of a song, coming in at 9 minutes and 14 seconds, and it traverses across the full range of Katatonia's writing styles. The beginning of the song is chunky, distorted, slow headbanging riffs, and those same riffs transform slightly towards the middle of the song to give it that special brand of melancholy the band has been creating.
So if you come by because this last time I'll be here.
The last section of the song is more like a hidden track. There's a 25-second gap of silence before the actual song and what follows. And what follows is a synth and acoustic guitar duo that creates an atmosphere akin to mourning the loss of a loved one. This was an album that I didn't like much when it first came out, but over the years, it's grown on me. Of all the songs, A Darkness Coming is the one that I probably listen to the most. It's at this point in the band's career that I had resigned to the fact that I would have no idea what their next album was going to sound like. However, there has been multiple times this band has released an album that I didn't like, only to pick up a few years later and fall in love with. In 2001, Katatonia would finally establish what would be their lineup for the next 9 years. Friedrich Normann's brother, Matthias, would be brought in to cover bass duties, and Friedrich would move back to guitars. Daniel Lil Jackfist would become the first permanent drummer for the band. These changes, in my opinion, would create the true beginning of the Katatonia that we know today with their release of Last Fair Deal Gone Down. This album begins to move the band towards more of an alternative metal sound, closer to something like A Perfect Circle. And Jonas seems to be becoming more comfortable with his voice with every album. Disposition sets the tone for this version of Katatonia right from the opening. You get an immediate sense that this is a different band, but at the same time they are keeping much of the previous elements that made them unique in the first place. Jonas's soft voice is the counter to the distorted guitars, and for me, this is more of what I was expecting from them. Both the verses and the choruses managed to convey a ton of emotion and atmosphere, and this is where they really started to dial in the heavy, soft sound that Katatonia is well known for today. Tear Gas certainly descends from the writing style of Tonight's Decision, but it manages to include some upbeat sections to help pull you out of the pit of depression created by the verses. The song is a blend between alternative metal and pop rock, and with a 3-minute and 23-second runtime, it sounds custom made for radio. Jonas's voice effortlessly pulls you down into a realm of heartbreak and sorrow. Even with its cryptic lyrics, the tone of the vocals makes it very clear what this song is about, and you gleefully join along for the ride.
What is it in my eyes? A piece of broken glass. Is this the time I should be on my knees, please? Is this your way of telling another has been found? Now I know it's tear gas in my eyes.
I Transpire incorporates elements of psychedelic rock, reminiscent of Pink Floyd's Astronomy Domine. Even Jonas's vocal performance sounds more like something from the late 60s or early 70s at the beginning of the song.
Do they know I'm afraid, so afraid? They depend on my words, so I know I'm awake.
While his voice still remains that sad tone that he has curated over the years, the chorus of the song manages to be more uplifting. The song feels like the last leg of a journey out of depression and into the realization that it's all going to be okay after all.
There is no way I am going to be free. Across the hearts, there's no way.
Tonight's music is probably the most beautiful song written by the band to date. With an opening riff that sounds like it could be straight from The Cure's Disintegration, coupled with Jonas's soft vocals, this disarms you from the jump.
Who could see beyond this my darkness? And for once save their own prayers.
When the song does pick up, The primary riff continues to bridge the gap between verse and chorus. I don't mention lyrics that often, but the lyrics in this song are pure poetry.
How could this go so very wrong? That I must depend on darkness. Would anyone follow me further down?
This song is for the romantic in all of us, and it never fails to conjure up deep emotions of loss every time I listen to it. I can't express enough how much I love this song. Sweet Nurse opens with a little more of the psychedelic elements we heard back on I Transpire. At first it comes off as a little cheesy, but it all starts to come together by the second part of the verse.
So that I can for once have the sun in my eye. You smile and say it's a fine day. Oh, my sweetener.
But the chorus is where this song really shines. It's probably the most uplifting sounding piece from this era of the band. It sounds like it should be the intro for some emotional, high-action sci-fi anime like Gundam or something.
Then like a ghost at night, you come around all dressed in white, talking to me. And so I had to drink the water with your poison spill. No more will.
Now, for much of the song, they bounce back and forth between verse and chorus. And there is a bridge later in the song, but it really just serves as a stopgap to get you back to that chorus hook. This is one of my personal favorite albums from the band. I have a very specific playlist I listen to when I'm dealing with shitty traffic that I made when I lived in New York. The playlist is called Road Rage, and it's full of songs to keep me calm under road rage conditions. Every one of these songs I just went over are on the playlist. The thing is, after Discouraged Ones, I tuned out from Katatonia and didn't listen to them again until 2006. It wasn't until then that I backtracked and discovered how much I love this album. It wasn't the first time I had done this with the band, and it wasn't going to be the last either. 2003's follow-up album, Viva Emptiness, would be the first time Katatonia would carry over themes from one album to another. This would also be the first time the band would work with sound engineer and producer Jens Bogren, a relationship that would continue until 2016. Fun fact, this would be Jens Bogren's first album, not just his first Katatonia album. And while not his best work, he would go on to become one of the best in the business, and in my book, he's battling it out with Peter Tägtgren for who is the best. Right from the opening of Sleeper, you notice how Jens Bogren has mixed the bass. And because of this, you start noticing Matthias Norman's bass playing a lot more. Just another reason why you need a good sound engineer when making an album.
Now I'm breathing.
It's at this point in the band's career that they start to come back into the realm of metal and really begin to focus more on their unique, heavy, soft sound that I call the 10-ton pillow. Criminals is one of those songs that took a bit to grow on me. But once it did, I haven't been able to shake it. The bass line at the beginning is catchy, reminiscent of the opening bass lines from songs like Filter's Hey Man, Nice Shot.
The way the light hits the room, the way I am unable to protect you. Oh, I'm running away. I will never forgive myself for running away.
Then you have these haunting verses where you have Jonas singing with his enchanting soft voice, telling a story about a brutal home invasion. The chorus kicks in and it has a perfect hook. Add all of that to its tight 3-minute and 47-second runtime and you have a great pop song. Emptiness is one of my favorite songs from this era of Katatonia. From the flanger on the guitar in the beginning to Jonas's vocals, this song is a perfect summary of this album.
I hold my breath and check the time. 1 minute, no collapse.
The verses also effectively set up the chorus, which has more of a minimalistic tone similar to many Seattle bands from the early 90s.
Be still for a moment, everything depends upon you. You die, I will die too. Once we were heroes, but everything has changed since then. Now they recognize you too.
Towards the end of the song, there is a tone shift that incorporates some of their newer prog elements. A Premonition works as a crossover between the alternative rock sounds of tonight's music and more heavier elements they started introducing into their sound with these last two albums. This song likes to bounce back and forth between these two sounds, and later it begins to blend the two for its coda. Burn the Remembrance serves up a little soft jazz alongside some Soundgarden-like riffs.
Lights and colors, your picture hangs in the night. Is this the right time to set one free and go away in the emptiness behind you?
Jonas, being primarily a percussionist, also manages to sneak in some hand drums on this track. I haven't noticed it in any other tracks previous to this one, but I will tell you, they become more prominent in future songs. Criminals, and Evidence are all in heavy rotation for me, especially Evidence. This was another album I had to discover later. After I decided I liked Last Fair Deal Gone Down, I immediately had to check this one out and instantly fell in love with it.
Visions come in a sick room bed. There's something left to learn.
Now we move on to the album that started my love affair with this version of Katatonia, and that is 2006's The Great Cold Distance. This album is a culmination of all the themes they have been experimenting with their entire career. This is the return of the 10-ton pillow, and by this point, Jonas's voice is a well-oiled machine. He knows how he wants to sound, and he nails it. The band is now 3 albums deep in a stable lineup, and the writing is the best it has ever been. The Great Cold Distance is easily one of the most accessible metal albums ever. Whenever someone asks me which Katatonia album to start with, it's this one. Hell, if you have a friend that doesn't know if they like metal or not, start them with this one. This album is the perfection of the heavy, soft sound that Katatonia had been working on for 13 years. I always say the first song on an album sets the tone for the entire thing. Deliberation does this perfectly with its subdued opening, but as soon as the bass kicks in, you get an immediate understanding of the tone of this album.
The red circle holds the only light. Break down my perspective and notify everyone when the time is right. My mouth remains.
Jonas's voice has never been more clear, and Jens Bogren's mix has a pocket for every instrument, and in no place is it more apparent than in the chorus. This isn't the most technical song on the album, but it is a very effective opener.
So when you let me in, let me justify my own reward. You put your hands on me, and I learned the words I didn't know before.
Soil Song is one of those that will show up in suggestions for this band time and again. The rhythm section tears it up for the entire song. Matthias's opening bass line is as memorable as anything Katatonia has done.
The dream is so far. Come and take the consequence. Few things are certain.
And the heavy chugging for the chorus will give you an instant case of stank face. If you aren't familiar with what stank face is, here, I'll show you. It's that face you make when you smell something really bad. But in music, it's a good thing.
Evacuate. Somewhere. Soil song. Future death in your reach.
If that wasn't enough, there is a bridge towards the end that will give you permanent stank face. My Twin is the song that many Americans first heard from Katatonia. It's one of their few songs that got a lot of play in the United States. It's a perfect radio song.
Then the shame, the head is hung in shame. The neck, then the shame, the head is hung in shame.
And coming in at a cool 3 minutes and 41 seconds, it follows a pretty standard verse-chorus formula that borders on being pop. They do manage to add some progressive elements to the song to elevate it above your standard pop song though, especially with the rhythm work towards the end, which is very similar to what they did with Soil's song, just more simplified. July is one of my favorite songs from Katatonia, and it has been for almost 2 decades now. And every time it starts to get old, I give it a little break, and it doesn't take long before it's back in rotation again. This song gets so much stuff right. The opening is a perfect reel cast that just lures you in for when the beat drops, with riffs reminiscent of early Tool while still keeping everything that Katatonia has established over the last couple albums.
I see the bright lights. It's the month of July. It's violent here. Why have you left me? If only you could stay and keep me in.
This is Katatonia firing on all cylinders. If you don't like this band by the time you get to the end of this song, then you're never going to like this era of the band. But there still might be something for you a few albums further down the line. Finally, In the White changes things up a bit. This song feels like the evolution of songs like Tonight's Music and A Darkness Comin'. It has an almost lullaby feeling to it, something to lay back with headphones and close your eyes to. Even when the song gets heavier, it still manages to hold onto its softer elements. And once again, Jens Bogren's mix makes it all the easier to just sit back and listen to each of the individual moving parts to this piece. This is one of those albums where the entire album is a banger. Picking just 5 songs was a nightmare. If you think there is a song from this album that belongs on this list that isn't, tell me about it down in the comments section. And while you're at it, give the video a like and a subscribe. As far as playlists go, Deliberation, July, and In the White are on a lot of my playlists. I've listened to My Twins so much at this point that I'm sick of it. Soil's song does hold a special place in my heart though, and that song finds itself in and out of rotation a lot. In 2009, they would release Night is the New Day, and it would be the final album with this lineup. The album would continue with the heavy, soft theme, but lean more towards the soft and move the band firmly into the realm of prog. And no song on this album would embody this sound more than the opening song, Forsaker. The opening of this song is probably the heaviest riff in the entire Katatonia catalog. It's then immediately juxtaposed with a soft, ethereal verse.
Rage from a distance. The name unfamiliar. Spikes reached our heart.
Unlike Katatonia's previous attempts with these concepts, Forsaker isn't just bouncing back and forth between soft and heavy. It effortlessly blends these opposing sounds, counterbalancing the delicate voice of Jonas with the low tuning and heavy riffs Anders would normally use in their Bloodbath project. If I had to pick one song from Katatonia that is my current favorite, it would be The Longest Year. Much like Forsaker, it embodies the 10-ton pillow, while at the same time conveys a deep sadness that is rarely found in the world of metal.
In the nights of old, I always wished in the longest year that had me down.
And as soon as the song has brought you to the depths of sorrow, it pulls you out with an energetic and almost hopeful chorus.
I can't see fire when I fall behind. When I give up, my thoughts redefine.
Only to dump you right back into your own self-imposed dungeon of depression. I love this song. It really gets under my skin. And I think you can tell by the words I'm using to describe it that I have a deep connection to it. Whenever I feel bad, this song lifts me up.
I'll call the sun. City lights fading still.
Idle Blood is another direct descendant of A Darkness Coming. While Forsaker contains the heaviest riff in Katatonia's catalog, Idle Blood is probably the most beautiful. This is another song where Matthias' bass playing really stands out, and it really carries the first half of the song.
You there, bringer of my despair. You are stagnation of hope. Oh, you personify loss.
Idle Blood in many ways is an ode to bands like Red House Painters and the Porcupine Tree. With its acoustic guitar, heavy atmosphere, and just a dash of slow jazz. This is one of those songs that you can sneak into any playlist for people that hate metal but like soft rock. I think even yacht rockers would probably love this song. Great show, by the way. I wish we could get an HD update of it. I miss you, Yacht Rock. I miss you. If Idle Blood lulled you into a slumber, then Liberation would jolt you out of it. Though the song still has many of the softer components of the previous songs, it also manages to deliver some heavy-hitting, chugging riffs. Each part of the song flows into the next, and coming in at 4 minutes and 14 seconds, the song ends before becoming repetitive. Day and Then the Shade is the most uplifting song on the album. Everything that is done before on this album is done all at once in this song. But instead of lulling you into a slumber or dragging you down into the depths of sadness, it sits on the side of a calm riverbank and makes you feel at peace with existence. Sure, it has its heavy elements, but at no point do the heavy elements feel like an attack on your senses. This is another one of those songs I like to sneak into playlists to play around people who don't like heavy music. This album had everything I wanted. It was heavy and poetic, and Jonas's voice had moved beyond any form of imitation to become one of the most unique voices in metal. Sadly, the Norman brothers would depart from the band after this album, and the stable lineup era of Katatonia would come to an end. This would begin another run of sonic changes for the band.
White sun, spring, a well, come for a good time. It's not what
In 2012, the band would bring in Per Eriksson for guitars and Niklas Sandin for bass. And despite losing 2 key members, they managed to create another masterpiece with Dead End Kings. This album, though less heavy than the previous 2 albums, somehow manages to shift to being heavy-hearted instead. Nowhere in the Katatonia catalog is melancholy more present than it is with this album. The Racing Heart is a prime example in this shift in tone. Whereas I previously referred to their sound as a heavy-soft, I would now call it soft-heavy. That is to say, previously they had heavy songs that would be soft at times, but these are soft songs with heavy moments. It really took me some time to get into this album when it came out. Critics were falling all over themselves talking about it, and I didn't see it at the time. I just wasn't ready for these changes. But after a few years, it really grew on me. Leech opens with some more of the slow jazz musings from Idle Blood. Even when the song is slow, you feel like something heavier is waiting just over the horizon. And then the 10-ton pillow drops, but just for a moment. This song is a wonderful dance between light and darkness, blending soft jazz, blues, and a few elements from Katatonia's Death Doom days.
boiling over. We're falling inside high. My blood is...
Ambitions is a song for those of us who never made it. Though I rarely get into lyrics of songs, I find this one very relatable. Quite simply, it's a song about the artists with grandiose dreams that never made it, only to watch their ambitions fade over time.
At night, walking on the tracks, change my perspective. Idle hands with wounds and cracks, still ineffective.
Katatonia does an amazing job of not only putting this feeling into words, but also translating it into their personal melancholic soundscape.
Indecision, sow the seed. Aspiration is never within reach. At night there is no other view. Sing a song for the ones who never made it.
Undo You is another journey into the easy listening soundscape. This is a perfect song for any fan of soft rock.
It's life's four-way stop, the tinge in your shadow drops. Fate pulls you down for the count, with broken promises to amount. Time seal our ways through the heart of...
This was one of those songs that turned me away from this album, and it took some years before I was able to enjoy it for what it was, which is a very beautiful slow rock song. Lethean is the kind of song you just throw on and rock out to. The tone is set immediately with the intro of the song. It then moves in a predictable manner, but by predictable I mean if you were already listening to the rest of the songs on this album, then every change in this song is not only understandable, but expected. I would be doing a great disservice to this song if I didn't mention the lead in the last section of the song. It works as a perfect transition between the sections and really brings the entire thing together. This album is full of great playlist songs, many of which are perfectly compatible with girlfriends. Somehow Jonas is one of those singers that gets overlooked time and time again. You see all these YouTube channels that have titles like Vocal Coach Reacts, and somehow Jonas is never one of the singers that they react to. It's something that I've never been able to figure out, and the guy really is in a class of his own. By 2015, the band started losing members again, and armed only with sessions musicians, they decided to do a live acoustic event and record it. I don't usually mention live albums, but this one fits my standard of contributing something unique to the catalog. Basically, this album is a best of, but done acoustically, and the production team that set up the sound for this concert nailed it perfectly. The entire concert is up on YouTube, and I'll put a link down in the description for as long as I can. The recording captures Jonas's live voice at its finest, and they even managed to play some of their older songs like Day and A Darkness Coming.
Let's stay here for a while. Is something gonna happen today? Your smile has decayed.
And the renditions of tonight's music and evidence in this concert are some of the best works this band has ever done.
So be still for a moment. Everything depends upon you. If you die, I will die too. Once we were heroes, but everything has changed since then. Now they recognize you too.
One of the things that really stood out to me in this concert is the audience. This isn't a bunch of teenagers out blowing off steam. This is a very mature crowd who paid a lot of money to see this show.
How could this go so many that I must depend on darkness? Would anyone follow further down?
If you like this band at all, do yourself a favor and watch this concert.
Weighted clouds coming by has me looking right here under the sky. And I left my home past.
By 2016, Katatonia had moved even further into the prog direction with their release of The Fall of Hearts. At first, I despised this album. I gave it one listen, put it down, and never picked it back up. Then one night in 2020, like many other people, I was sitting at home alone and drinking because I couldn't do anything else. In my drunken state, I decided to put this album on after randomly watching a YouTube video for one of the songs, and something just clicked. I was lonely, miserable, and drunk, and this album just plucked at those heartstrings. This album would see the addition of Roger Odgerson on guitar and Daniel Mullenin in drums. This would also be the final album that Jens Bogren would work on. Old Heart Falls is the song that turned me around on this album. It came up on YouTube when I was drunk, and I played it. It's also one of the best lyric videos I've seen, mainly because of how well the lyrical theme matches the video.
I had closed the door behind.
The transition in the middle of the song also complements the rest of it and doesn't detract from it. This is one of those songs that also plays well in the bedroom. If you like any of the later Katatonia music, do not miss this song.
Heart pumps death into our heredity. Who wants to come with me? For every dream that is left behind me, I take a bow. With every
Residual is probably the most progressive song in the band's entire catalog. It opens with some of the modernized slow jazz that the band has been introducing into their work over the last few albums.
written my mind up, residual thought, until knowledge will.
It's almost obligatory when writing a progressive rock or metal song that you need to have a lot of changes in the song. And one of the measures of a progressive song is how well the band manages those transitions. Katatonia chooses to do this by slowly building the rhythmic cadence to the point of an expected release, or you could call it a pop, if you will. not going to attempt to describe all the changes in this song, but it has become one of my favorites over the years. Rarely do I have a prog metal playlist without this song. If you're a fan of Tool's 10,000 Days era, this song would be right up your alley.
Made me rise up. Take your time, everyone will want to go. Step by step, degraded my heart. That's what you do when you...
Sirac continues with the more progressive metal themes of the album, and it also manages to include some of the heavier themes from the Night is the New Day album. Much like Night is the New Day, the heavies are very heavy and the softs are very soft. You would think the bipolar nature of the song would be jarring, but Katatonia shows this is something they have mastered over the decades. They effortlessly move between very heavy prog metal and this slow jazz style they have been playing with. And unlike most of the songs from this album, it's a heavy song that occasionally gets soft rather than the other way around.
Across the dark, it will inspire. Fell inside, touched up undone virtue, made it burn through.
Shifts is another song that leans heavily in the progressive direction, and it's apparent from the very beginning of the song. The movements between the rhythm section and the melody have an almost intoxifying effect as it sways back and forth. This effect is amplified by the synth flutes and the piano in the background.
Spiraling nights in the void.
The entire song has an ethereal feeling, almost like being guided along a journey in the astral plane. Of all the people, my son is the one that got me into this song. It was one of those ones I was overlooking on the album, but the one he would listen to the most.
The shifting beneath nothing to observe. The cloud had her feet. Nothing to observe. The sun was made of you.
Passer has an almost kind of a dream theater-like opening, but it quickly reminds you that this is Katatonia. There is still a lot of very interesting guitar work throughout the song, and even some double kick drums in there too. Unlike many Katatonia songs, Jonas's voice isn't the primary focus here. This is one of those few Katatonia songs that has a lot going on in the music, and fans of proggier bands like Textures and Architects will most likely find something in the song they like.
Contemplating summer and what could have been, who knows? But I feel took the words from drunken heart.
For an album that I once hated, it currently sits as my favorite Katatonia album. It's also been a big inspiration for me to listen to albums from other bands that I had previously dismissed. This album, more than any other, has made it apparent to me that my tastes are changing as I get older. And maybe there are things out there that I didn't like before that I would like now. With that said, 2020's City Burials is one of those albums that I'm not a big fan of, but it's slowly growing on me. When this album came out, I completely missed it. But after I fell in love with The Fall of Hearts, I decided to give it a chance, and it just never resonated with me. Later I learned that Jonas wrote this album without Anders co-writing like they normally do, so maybe that has something to do with the sound being off for me. But I've learned my lesson with dismissing anything from this band too early. I will continue to revisit this album. Behind the Blood opens with an almost Joe Satriani legato picking style, something way out of left field for Katatonia. But at this stage, we should be expecting anything. It then transitions into an almost Jerry Cantrell style of playing for the verses.
Rivers rush behind the blood. The cinder skies come alive with the drums.
I don't know whether it's Anders or Roger performing these leads, but I've heard nothing like this from either of their catalogs. Overall, the song has this almost 1980s American glam metal feel to it, but they still sneak in some Katatonia here and there.
Such a pale spark, such a long way before you let me know, before you bless me with your thunder. The ground shakes.
Lacquer is a synth-heavy song. The focus is primarily on vocals, with the synths and 808 beats serving to back the vocals.
Scrape the lacquer. Can't you see it's all turning? Try the poise to radiate.
At first, I didn't really get this song. It was too far away from anything I was expecting from Katatonia to immediately like. But after hearing them perform it live, something just clicked and now I hear it differently.
It's all turning. The levee breaking. I can't live to fight once more. The levee breaking.
Fighters is a faster-paced Katatonia song infused with more of those late 80s riffs from Behind the Blood. And coming in at 3 minutes and 37 seconds, it's a song made for radio. However, there isn't really much to the lyrical work, and for most Katatonia fans, that's where their bread and butter is. Currently, Lacquer is the only song on this album that makes my playlist, but the others are slowly growing on me. Who knows, by next year I might be declaring this their best album, but as of right now, it's not. Katatonia had to cancel their tour plans for City Burials because, well, 2020 2020'd. So they started writing a new album instead, and in 2023 they released their 12th studio album, Sky Void of Stars. Like the previous album, Jonas wrote this album without any input from Anders. But unlike the previous one, I would immediately take to this one. Sky Void of Stars shifts away from the more progressive elements they had been incorporating into their sound over the last few years, and instead leans more towards hard rock with a dash of metal here and there. Colossal Shade isn't the first song on this album, but it should have been. It's one hell of an opener. It reincorporates much of the sonic atmosphere from Night is the New Day, but it leans a little more hard rock than metal. There is less focus on Jonas's vocals, and in fact, they are pretty heavily treated with layering and effects. Overall, it works, and if radio was still a thing, I would say that this song and much of the album was made perfectly for it.
Let's drain the swords and trade it for the greater high. Just say the word, I'll give up my final piece of freedom.
Birds continues with the radio rock sound, but leans in a little bit more with Jonas's voice. There isn't any of the complications seen in the previous proggier albums. This is straightforward with minimal flash. Not to say it's not polished, because it certainly is that. This album sounds like it was made by people who have been doing this for 30 plus years.
Shut down my mind, it's the heart breaking out fear. Uncover the skies and show me the birds. The birds, they rise, premonitions on the other side.
There is an interesting part in the song where, during a bridge, Jonas is running off seemingly inconsequential numbers. But I'm told it's actually the GPS coordinates of the hospital his children were born in. It could just be a rumor, but if you know more about it, feel free to tell me about it down in the comments section. And while you're at it, leave a like and a subscribe. Author moves back into the realm of progressive metal, and Jonas gives one of his better performances of the album. The song maintains a spacey feeling throughout, which is fitting because this is the song the album gets its Sky Void of Stars title from. At times, it blends these spacier Pink Floyd elements with some Tool-like riffs. Impermanence is the grand emotional ballad of the album. It's a duet between Jonas and Joel Ekelof of the band Soen. When I got the album, I didn't look at the inlay cover to see if there was a separate singer. And when I was listening to the song, I kept telling myself, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like Jonas. But the two of them do sound very similar. And if you're not paying attention, you can miss exactly which one is doing the singing.
I step outside to be defeated. Oh, I'm suspended by a parting thread. A fool awash with wine.
Yoel and this duet brings out notes in Jonas I don't think I have ever heard from him before. By the final chorus, the two are singing in tandem and beauty ensues. No Beacon to Illuminate Our Fall is a perfect final song. It baits you in with its soft opening, only to turn around and bite you with some of the heaviest riffs since Forsaker. Earlier when I said Forsaker has the heaviest riff in the entire catalog, this song gives it some serious competition. It's a great reminder that when Katatonia wants to write something heavy, they can, and they do it well. That's not to say there aren't parts to the song that are softer. I mean, this is late era Katatonia we're talking about here. But this song is one of those that hits all the right notes, just like Forsaker. They have managed to take all of the elements of their works from the last several albums and merge them into one song. All of these songs are playlist songs for me. Maybe because it's still fresh in my mind, but I've been playing these songs for over a year now and I still love them. I'm a bit miffed about Anders not writing on the last two albums. I hope they sort their shit out and Anders starts working with Katatonia again. He wasn't even on the tour for this album, and the show that I was at had plenty of people asking where Anders was in between songs. In my humble opinion, Katatonia is and always has been Jonas and Anders. Nothing more, nothing less. This band has endured for decades, and I would like to see at least one more album from them with Jonas and Anders writing together. I may be a big death metal guy, but us death metal guys do have a soft side too. Well, most of us do. For me, that soft side is well represented by Katatonia. They give me something to listen to when I need to keep my road rage under control. They have a lot of great bedroom music, and some of it is perfect for gloomy days. And I hope that something in here has managed to catch your attention too. Remember, metal isn't always about anger and aggression. It's also about intensity. And emotional intensity isn't always angry, just intense. So if you haven't found something in this video that you like, maybe you will next time on Why You Might Like Metal.